How's it going today, guys? In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the build path for Zed. Uh, we did the mechanics video a couple days ago, so we'll be taking a look at the build path on how to take those early leads and snowball them. So typically, Zed will start a longsword and refillable pots. This is just so you want to hit your serrated dirk spike really early, as early as possible, because if you have the serrated dirk, you'll be able to have the early game lethality, so you'll be able to harass your lane opponents a lot better. And if you have the serrated dirk by the time you're level 6, you'll be able to burst down your opponent mid laner after you trade them with the shadow EQ combo, and then you can wait until you ease up, ulti in on them, E auto attack, and then harass them down, and then you just pick up a kill off of that. And then you just play off of that snowball. So that's why he typically does go a longsword, so you can kind of get this rated dirk as early as possible. If you are against a ranged champion, which typically you are, and you're not confident in your dodging abilities, you can actually start a Doran Shield and a health bot. This will just be so if you're getting harassed and you're not used to the harass, or you're not used to playing Zed, this will keep you in lane longer so you can CS. His CS under tower is pretty easy because of the passive last hit on the minions. So this will keep you in lane longer, and if they step up and take bad trades with if you get like 2 or 3 electrocute proc, you can actually kill them, most lane opponents. So they can waste resources to harass you, and then you can still have kill potential with Doran Shield if they kind of play too aggressive. So the mythic I will typically go on Zed is the Eclipse. This just has a really good passive that pairs with his ulti, because your ulti will take that 6% max health physical damage and do an additional pop on top. The Omnivamp does help him stay in lane and side lanes longer because he doesn't take mana. And then the percentage armor penetration also helps against the front lines and some of the tanks that they have. So this is typically what I'll go 80% of the time, because it also scales well into tankier comps because of that percentage armor penetration. The other option is the Duskblade. This is typically better if you're looking at 5 squishies, because you can assassinate one and then get the Night Stalker passive, and then get that bonus slow and damage because it gets reset off of your next squishy, and then you try to proc it as many times as you can on other squishies. This doesn't really help against the tankier teams because it'll be about like 160 physical damage. If they have armor, then it starts to fall off and gets mitigated, but then that percentage health on the other one will be bigger numbers because of the nature of their comp or their champion. So I like to go Eclipse, and then your boots, I'll typically go Murkruts. This is just because it's one of the few tenacity items in the game, and Zed falls off to CC, or he doesn't he's not tanky, so if he gets CC chained, the tenacity will help possibly break out of that and get out. If the enemy team is all AD, then I would go the steel caps there. Now your second item is, also like Pantheon, if I'm ahead and I'm snowballing, I will typically actually build a second serrated dirk, before I finish my tier 2 boots. Because I'll take the money from snowballing and then I'll snowball into more lethality. So that my opponents would have a harder time and I can almost 1v1 anybody with these, completed mythic and the additional lethality on top. And I kind of need to play off of that snowball. Because he does want to play from ahead, and as I build armor, your lethality gets diminishing returns on it. So then your second item is based on playstyle. If you are good at roaming, you can go with the Youmuu's because of the active on it will get you to the side lanes faster. So after you take a potential mid, or you take pressure mid and you get a kill, or you force them out of lane, you can use the Youmuu's and go bot or top to set up ganks or tower dives, and the move speed on that will certainly help get you to those lanes faster so that you don't miss much waves coming back to your lane. If you are not good at making the roams, I would go with the collector second item. This is good against if you're trying to snowball harder in your individual lane, and you don't need the movement speed because it gives you that nice passive that will also appear with your death mark, so you can death mark into the collector range and then still pop your passive or the collector passive on those opponents. Off of these two items, most people in your mid lane typically won't be able to play into you, and then you just snowball from there, where you'll take like mid tower objective, and then these two lethality items will almost burst down any squishy, especially with that collector passive. Same with Youmuu's if you have the double lethality. It's just that this one helps with the execution. After you get your two lethality items and your boots, typically I would go with more versatile builds and items just to make sure that you don't have to play like snowball and do nothing later game. I know that some people, or a majority of the people, would go like Edge of the Night and kind of keep stacking that lethality, but I like building for the enemy team comp. So based on that, if you're looking at HP tanks, you can go into, or if you're looking at tanks, you can go Cleaver. The Cleaver is very good because of the armor reduction, pairs with your Eclipse armor reduction, and it gets you closer to that true damage value that you want on typical lethality builds, and it also makes you slightly tankier if you do have to play into those tanky front lines, because off of these two items you can already burst the back line, so then the issue is dealing with the rest of the team comp. So that's why I do like the Cleaver, typically as a third item. And then if they are HP tanks, you can go with the off-meta Bork, because the lethality items does enough damage to kill the backline. The Bork and Cleaver will help you scale into dealing with HP tanks like Sion, Cho'Gath, people that stack HP, Sejuani, things like that. And the Bork passive, along with the Eclipse, will also help start shredding them. And they also pair with your ulti, so if you didn't have to use your ulti to pop the squishies, then you can still ulti onto the tanks and not feel the worst about it. Like ideally, if you need the ulti to kill the backline, then you do that. But if you don't, then you don't want to just hold on to your ulti for no reason. And then last item after that is typically a Last Whisper item. I would go with either, depending on team comp, the enemy team comp. If they are those HP tanks, you go Lord Dominix, because of that 15% bonus damage. If they are just straight armor tanks, then this is when you wouldn't build the Bork. You would go with different items here, where you can go with even an early Last Whisper item. So then you'd go to Cyrilda's last here as your 4th item, because they're already should be stacking armor at this point. So now you're getting diminishing return from your lethality. So you would go Cyrilda tier for the armor pen to still be doing a lot of damage. And then after that, you can either go into the Hydra. This is for like the 3 armor tank front lines. So like Amumu, Rammus, things like that don't build crazy or don't have like crazy HP stats, but they just like stacking armor like Malphite. You're not gonna be able to one-shot burst them down, so you do want the extended trades on them. Again, you should be always focusing on the back line, and then you deal. This is lets you deal with the front line afterwards. So that's if the enemy has your standard comp with 2 to 3 back lines, and then the other vice versa front lines. So they have like some amount of tanks at least. So then if you're looking